most reliable blade. God. Putrid truth beneath the gilded name of Naviale.
It's like gold flecked with starlight. I'm the one holding that gold. Molten gold. Like gold.
Gold. Why does it feel like that since the 3.1 update, both Loge and Sigrika endlessly talk about gold? Why is it that with names like Balder, Virunga, and Gnungamir, the high-tech sci-fi world of Lahai-Roi seems to talk so much about ancient Norse mythology? Today, I want to pose a bit of a theory that the 4 real acts of Lahai-Roi, from 3.1 to 3.4, are being loosely based off of the 4 acts of Richard Wagner's drama, The Ring des Nibelungen. This is a kind of conspiracy tier theory crafting video, similar to my Warring States theory for Huang Lung, so as always, make sure you make up your own mind on this, because this is all subjective, and I may very well be wrong. So, before we begin making connections between the drama and Wuthering Waves of the Lahai-Roi story, we need to first briefly talk about the Ring des Nibelungen first. The Ring des Nibelungen, otherwise known as the Ring Cycle, is one of the most famous works in German culture, perhaps almost reaching the level of what Dante's Divine Comedy means for Italians. It's something that has become a small cornerstone of modern Western culture, and you may have very well interacted with it without even knowing about it.
Shall we dance?
Want to know where that song came from? That just then was Ride of the Valkyries, composed by Richard Wagner for the Ring Cycle. In fact, the Ring Cycle is also the perfect illustration of an important storytelling concept that Wagner invented, the Gesamtkunstwerk, being the complete unification of music, theatre, choreography, and poetry to tell a story. Something that, when you read through Kuro's story interviews, seems to be deeply ingrained into their philosophy ever since the beginning of 3.0. However, what we're really here for in regards to the Ring Cycle is how its story parallels Lahai-Roi's own. The Ring Cycle is a musical drama split into 4 parts: Das Rheingold, Die Walkür, Siegfried, and Gotterdammerung. It is a story that is massively inspired by Norse and German mythology, as well as other aspects such as medieval alchemy, all of which we've covered with characters such as Loge's attainment of the Philosopher's Stone. The story of this 4-part drama tells the story of the Rheingold, a molten gold that can be crafted into a golden ring that brings its wielder immense power. The story follows how people, giants, and gods, all hallmarks of Norse mythology of course, fight over this ring, resulting in the final act, Gotterdammerung, which results in the death of the gods, something which, if you've been watching my other videos on this channel, will know as Ragnarok, the battle that ends the world. Now, as you can probably imagine, the symbolism of gold is an essential part of the Ring Cycle, being something that is immensely powerful, the molten Rheingold that can provide godlike powers, but is also immensely dangerous, being cursed by the dwarf Alberich to literally doom anybody who held it to misfortune. So far, within the Lahai-Roi story, the gold has taken an immense thematic significance. For Loge, gold takes the form of the wonder drug ichor, which is capable of immense power akin to that of gods, but is also immensely dangerous, having turned Luke's brother Ryan into a rabid husk of his former self. It's no surprise, then, that Luke's gold ichor is based on the real ichor, the blood of the Greek gods that was what provided them their power, but was deadly to mortals. On the other hand, however, Sigrika's gold is the expectation of those around her. We know this because of not only her other symbolism, such as the 1999 musical Mozart, and the songs Gold van de Sternen and Wir werden van seinen Schatten los, which, if you're interested, you can check this video out here to kind of like have a look at this symbolism, but also because Kuro literally tells us that Sigrika's gold, the final answer to her riddle, is the faith that other people have in her. While their expectations are immensely pressuring and even manifest the dark side, they are also what causes her to keep going. In fact, within Sigrika's story, she even walks across a golden river, which seems very oddly the same as the Rhine gold within the ring cycle, being the magical gold of the River Rhine. Within both Luke and Sigrika's stories, gold is portrayed as a double-edged sword, something made of immense power, but also cursed and incredibly dangerous, which is the exact same as a ring cycle, where this theme of gold is literally the entire center of the narrative to begin with. However, this is, of course, not the only commonality between it and Lahai-Roi's story. The Royan side of Lahai-Roi is heavily inspired by Norse mythology, with mentions such as Baldur, Varunga, and Ginnungamir all being heavily related to Ragnarok, the Norse conception of the final battle that would end the world. Beyond this basically being directly cited within the lore, many events such as the death of the Exostrider, an apocalyptic winter, and the falling of the sun all heavily correlate to this chain of events as we progress from 3.0 to 3.4. It may not be surprising then that the ring cycle, beyond heavily including more Norse mythology, also cites Ragnarok, being Gotterdammerung, German for Twilight of the Gods. In fact, if we are to assume that the Lahai-Roi story will be shorter and end in 3.4, then even the chronology of the ring cycle seems to perfectly match Wuthering Waves. Coinciding with the first time gold began to be mentioned heavily, with Luke in 3.1, the 4 patches of 3.1 to 3.4 even seem to perfectly match the 4 acts of the ring cycle. Let me explain. Within Act 1, Das Rheingold, Wagner tells a story of the robbery of the molten Rheingold by the dwarf Alberich. As the gold is then in turn stolen from Alberich by the gods, he curses it to bring misfortune to anyone who wields it, beginning the infamous Golden Curse. Besides the fact that Luke's brother is literally called Rhine, and he makes several mentions to molten gold, Act 1 serves as an introduction to the ring cycle through the very key narrative elements of the loss of something great. This will serve as a key motivation for many characters throughout the rest of the drama. And within 3.0, Rover has helped the Academy, but has never really had a true motivation for serving Lahai-Roi as we are introduced to the world. However, within 3.1, we as viewers see that they have truly lost something precious that makes their grudge with the gods, the Frynodian Aleph-1, otherwise known as well in Norse terms as Varunga or Loki, a deeply personal matter. In addition, it motivates them to continue going, something that we are being reminded of even in 3.2. However, the parallels don't just stop there. The ring cycle's second act, Die Walküre, German for the Valkyrie, is even more uncannily similar to Lahai-Roi's story than the first. Within it, Wagner shifts the story to the Valkyrie Brünnhilde, who rebels against Wotan, the German equivalent of Odin, and is condemned to an eternal sleep in a very similar manner to the original Norse myth in the Sigruffamal. Within my Sigrika video, I've discussed in detail how her role as a guardian of the soul skin, reader of Royan runes, and Heliotic 6 successor makes her a perfect parallel of the Norse Valkyrie, and that even her name, Sigrica, is incredibly similar to Sigdrifa, the original Norse name for the main character of Wagner's Die Walküre, Brünnhilde. Brünnhilde's condemnation to an eternal sleep is in a way incredibly similar to Sigrica's fate of being trapped in the dark side forever, and even the way she eventually wakes up through the intervention of a hero, as well as her duty in teaching them how to read runes, is incredibly parallel to the real story of Sigdrifa within the Poetic Edda. Though we're only in 3.2, if the Lahai-Roi story is truly mirroring the course of Wagner's ring cycle, then like the Warring States video I did, we may be able to glean some theories about what happens next from the 3rd and 4th acts of the Ring des Nibelungen, being Siegfried and finally Götterdämmerung. To keep it relatively simple, and also in case you don't want to be spoiled about the ring cycle too heavily, Act 3, Siegfried, is an act about the rise of a hero. Translated into Lahai-Roi terms, I predict that 3.3 may herald the rise of a power or force with the capacity to defeat or challenge the might of the Frenodian Left One. While the Exostrider, which is Awakening, may be this hero, I suspect that the Hidden Sentinel of Lahai-Roi, as well as Rover, which if you don't know about, you can learn about in my video here, can also fulfill the role of Siegfried. Within Act 4, or Götterdämmerung, the Twilight of the Gods, the hero Siegfried gets corrupted, which leads to a lot of sacrificing and a grand battle that ends with the death of the gods. In 3.4, this may mean at the end of the Lahai-Roi saga, in conjunction with the massive implications of Ragnarok that have already been everywhere within the story, may end with a gigantic battle, possibly leading to an end of the Exostrider, Lahai-Roi Sentinel, Aleph 1, or any combination of those three. The corrupting of Siegfried may also mean that Rover or another character like Eimif or Sigrica, which we earlier discussed as slightly mirroring Brünnhilde, may also not get away scot-free. After all, we know for sure that Eimif is trapped outside the Strider Gate with a giant eldritch space monster, so it would be a slight miracle if she wasn't corrupted, even somewhat. Now, like my Warring States video, this is all a sort of tinfoil hat conspiracy, but if you see in the coming patches a reference from Wagner, and they have referenced some of his stuff already with Namipon's leitmotif, or if this whole theme of the dangers of gold continues, then perhaps you can think back to the Ring des Nibelungen. As always, thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you gained something from it. If you want to support me, feel free to subscribe, maybe even donate, or become a channel member. Channel members get some benefits like sneak peeks to early access content on Discord. That's a great way to support my work while looking at what is coming next. As always, I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you all in the next video.